I don't like exercise. I keep hearing about this runner's high or people addicted to weightlifting, and I'm addicted to cheese and couch time. But here's the thing. This past year, I was encouraged to make exercise a regular part of my routine, and to my surprise, those Apple Watch rings can go all the way around and lap themselves even. I asked some friends to help hold me accountable, and with their help, I went from 1 or 2 days of exercise a week or a month to a near daily minimum of a 1-mile walk every day, consistently, for months. It worked. Do I feel that high all the time? No. But it's weird how this practice has changed me. Now that I set exercise in motion, pardon the pun, I don't just know it's good for me, I can feel its benefits. And branding is like that too. You can know your brand, but you can't guarantee the success of it until you're living in it and through it every day, making decisions, communicating, and building intentional experiences with your audiences. Hi, I'm Amy Jackson, creative director, award-winning designer, color nerd, and unapologetic brand evangelist. And this is Brand is Not a 4-letter word. So you've done the hard work. You've defined your brand's character, its values, and even your mission. You know your target audience, you understand your arena and who else occupies that same space. You've clarified your positioning, you've determined your voice and messaging, and you've even discovered your brand's visual identity. Now what? In fact, that's where many brands stall, right here. But together, we're going to answer the big question, what do I do with my brand? I think by now we can all assuredly admit that a brand isn't just a logo, a guide, an aesthetic, or even a positioning statement. Thinking back to our very first episode where Michael Eisner told us a brand is a living entity and it is enriched or undermined cumulatively over time, the product of 1,000 small gestures. Here's what we must heed. Cumulatively, over time. But how can a brand deliver on its promise over and over? What actions must it take to not undermine itself? Remember when we started way back at brand character and personality in episode 1? We decided what sort of a style that brand evokes, where it lives, in what sort of house, and among which neighbors. We know how it stands out on the block and how the audiences we're trying to reach through brand communication can find us. We did that through episodes 2, 3, 4, 5, and even 6. So those action steps are how you prove your brand is authentic, actionable, and aspirational. The fact is, brand positioning only matters if it shows up everywhere your audience interacts with you. That includes things like your messaging, visual design, internal culture, customer experience. Should we revisit that communication cycle again? Remember how everything your brand is communicating through those 1,000 small gestures has to break through the internal and external noise, assumptions, and side conversations. So one tiny breakdown can clog up the entire works. In fact, this is where many brands unintentionally break trust. They say one thing, not even necessarily one big giant thing, something small that felt insignificant in the moment, even if it also perhaps felt that tiny bit left of what we meant or knew to align with our brand character positioning promises. Or we say everything exactly right, but we do something entirely, maybe just a click or two off. Maybe it's not a huge thing, but it's enough. In that tiny crack in the cycle, it changes everything. Let's jump into how brand action happens. First, we have communication. That's pretty obvious, right? It's how your brand communicates, how it speaks. You can find brand communication in places like your website copy, emails you send, marketing, customer service, financial statements, all emails. Plus, you've got your social media accounts, not just the posts, the comments, the likes, the engagements too. And what about the proposals you create for new business? Well, then there's your internal language, memos, town halls, scribbles, departmental meetings, and again, emails. Why are there so many emails? It all adds up to how your brand communicates, and you have to ask yourself every time, Does this still sound like our brand? Is it clear? Does it align with our promise? Then there's the design and visual expression of your brand. Now, as a designer, you know I love this, and I believe that all good brands can and should evolve in their aesthetic, but you must do so strategically, not based wholly on any trends or personal tastes. Your brand's visual library includes your logo and how it's used anywhere. Everywhere it's used, plus the colors you choose, hopefully from a well-aligned style guide, the typography you select, again, hopefully from that great guide, not just for ads, by the way, but for everything. Remember those proposals and emails? Yep, matters there too. Your layout and its consistency matters visually as it guides your target audience through your important experiences. Even the photos you choose, stock or otherwise, should align with your brand's look and feel every single time. Now, this feels like a good moment to pause and address something. Let me just dust off my soapbox. I have said this often. Art is a wonderful and important part of our humanity. It protects our history and preserves it. It allows us the ability to express thoughts, dreams, and desires. It offers a way to connect when words fall short, and it can be anything you love or respond to. While yes, there are certain experts who can say what is, quote, good art versus not good art, artistic expression cannot be graded. And we all have ways we express ourselves creatively in the words that we choose, the doodles we make in the margins, and the art that we love. Not far from art, but different, is design. Here's the thing. Design is not personal artistic expression. Design is visual creativity for a cause. It's meant to communicate something in a certain way, to solve a problem. It's not just decoration. It's an accelerator for your brand, and it amplifies your promise, your positioning, and your personality. So don't confuse art with design. And don't assume your budding intern or beloved nephew has the skill set to guide your brand's design decisions. Thank you for coming to my podcast talk. Finally, your brand communication includes the brand's experience. We talk about this a lot back in episodes 2 and 3. Your brand experience must match its promise or your authenticity will fail. And how your brand behaves in alignment with its communication or not matters. How quickly do you respond to your audience? How clearly do you explain things? How do you treat your customer relationships, your partners, the industry you serve? How do those internal teams make decisions? How are they empowered? How are those decisions executed? The truth is, your audience doesn't separate your brand from your behaviors. To them, the experience they have is your brand. The words they read or hear, the alignment to the actions they say, it's all brand. I'm circling back to one of my favorite brands, one we've established as holding some of, if not the most value in the world. Coca-Cola. Now, I know I've mentioned them several times, and maybe you're thinking, is she sponsored by them? Nope, they don't even know I exist, but I know I'm not their only fan. Coca-Cola is consistently ranked among the most valuable brands in the world, not because of its logo or advertising or communication style, or at least not because of any of those things alone, but because it consistently fulfills its unwavering brand promise. Coke promises, and I'm quoting here, to refresh the world in body, mind, and spirit. And everything that Coca-Cola says/does ladders right back to that promise. Visually, they have crisp imagery in rich, consistently identifiable hues. They create campaigns focused on ideals like global harmony. They celebrate shared moments of friendship and family and humanity, and even on their products, they ask you to share with fill in the name here. They live at an intersection of refreshment and nostalgia, evoking emotions at every sip. And perhaps most telling, as an avid Coke loyalist, I won't accept anything else as Coke. Don't come at me, Pepsi. Who are you kidding, RC Cola? And yes, your lovely small batch indie named soda, but you're not Coke. I may drink you, sometimes out of necessity, but I'll never accept you as being the same. And if I have a choice, I'm going with the OG. See, that's not marketing and that's not spin. That's just trust earned over time through consistency. So I guess the big question that we're asking today is how and or why do brands break down after they've been built and launched? How is it that promises fail? What about the experiences don't align? Well, first, organizations can overthink the capital letters big campaigns, but then ignore those small moments, and that's a fatal mistake. It could also be that brands aren't fully filling their internal channels. An organization that isn't wholly clear and united on what a brand is might allow teams to interpret that brand differently, and that's catastrophic to brand consistency. I mentioned earlier, but trend chasers lack the fortitude to reinforce brand clarity and erode the brand's accelerating aesthetic. And probably the biggest challenge is a lack of documentation. I know that sounds simple, but I've seen it myself more than I care to share. The brand guide is tossed into a corner, assumed that only those marketing people need it, and it's not ever reevaluated regularly and updated. Its evolution isn't shared widely across all teams. It isn't seen as the guiding star for business decisions company-wide, or it's never even created in the first place. How can a company onboard new people without a way to tell them where they live now as a brand? How can a company ensure everyone recognizes the same arena, is looking for the same targets, fulfills the same promise? They need a robust, clear, and actionable brand guide, not just a style guide that anyone can access and understand to execute. Brand action isn't about perfection. Not even Coke could attain that status. But it is about how alignment and those 1,000 small gestures rely on accurate repetition. That's how you attain and retain authenticity. So let's talk about that brand guide, or even expand to what types of documentation your brand needs. And I'm willing to share that even as a one-woman brand studio, I created a brand guide and I review it several times a year. Does anyone else really ever touch my logo or design communication from me? No. But I am nuanced and an active human who can sometimes forget small details. I'd like for you to know how very strongly my husband would be nodding his head right now. So yes, I have a guide, and I use it regularly as one single person because it helps. So what's in my guide? Information about my logos, first thing. The variations of them, how to connect them because I have several, the proper color versions with those details, where to use which type, and how much clearance or negative space should surround each element. My brand color palettes are also included with details about the various color systems and ratios of which colors to use in which combinations and quantities, so I am assured I employ the right selections without ever having to remember or think too hard. Execution me loves this. My brand typefaces are listed with notations about which ones should be used where and what styles can be applied to them and how to pair them with others so that I always look like me. I also make sure that I include sizing information here too. I have notation on what types of vector art and photos align with my brand aesthetic, and I keep details about how they should be cropped or laid out so that I don't have to look at old files all the time and match them or risk a big oops when I later see pieces side by side. Often iconography is also included in a section like this. And I also have information about my brand's writing style, its voice in written form. I notate things like whether or not I use the Oxford comma, I do, and what grade level I should write at across the various social media platforms and in my ever-beloved emails. I add information about my brand's voice and tone so that I remember it when I'm speaking as well. But here are some things you might not think about being in a brand guide. I have information about my brand's history, its promises, mission, values, and character, even though it's really just me. There should also be a section that highlights the brand's arena, including key competitors and a thumbnail on how to stand out. Not a full-scale battle card, but that's often a great jumping off place to get to one of those too. Key positioning, messaging points, taglines, those should all be included with information on how to execute. See, a brand guide shouldn't just be a bunch of color values and dust. It should be the thing that you reach for no matter what department you're in. It should level set your meeting discussions. It should be shared far and wide and referred to often. And your brand shouldn't just be a lofty or bunch of left behind assets. It should guide your work and ensure your communication matches your actions and both fulfill your brand promise through an authentic experience every single time. Your brand becomes real when people experience it, not when you explain it. Action is how trust is built. Consistency is how it's sustained. So here's this episode's brand hack. I know, you think I'm going to say, time to write a brand guide, but no. If you don't have a brand guide, I'd love to help walk you through the entire branding process so that a guide is built on strategic decisions, but that is way more than a hack. Brand momentum is built or eradicated by small moments, right? So let's pick just one small element and audit it. Look at your About page on your website or your social media bio areas. Does it clearly say who you help and how? Or, if that's not something you have, audit one email, something automated that goes out to everyone. Does it sound like how you talk when you meet your target audiences in real life? Or, if none of that applies, it's time to look at your email signature. Does it bring clarity about your brand's character and values? If these feel hard and you don't have a guide, well, let's talk. We can start with a quick brand audit and see where your brand needs help for long-term success. Because brand isn't a 4-letter word. It's your best strategy and your strongest story. Let's build your brand together. Learn how at brandisnotafourletterword.com, where strategy and storytelling meet design.